Hello friends, welcome to a new chapter today, and in this chapter let us now learn about one of the most important group of diseases, which is called as interstitial lung diseases. So in this interstitial lung diseases, these are a group of disorders which include many diseases. We will see all the diseases, okay, not in detail, but only the important points of all the diseases we are going to discuss in this chapter. Okay, so what is these interstitial lung diseases? The problem here can be anything, but because of this it can be due to allergy, or it can be due to infections, or it can be due to toxins, or it can be due to any modality, but all these will result in chronic, it is like slowly it results in inflammation of the lung, and this slow and chronic inflammation will lead to the slowly there will be inflammation. Slowly the adult develops dry cough. Here there won't be any mucus production, there will be dry cough, and at the end the lung leads to fibrosis, leading to honeycomb color pattern of the lung. Okay, we will see all these, okay, all the histological features and all the histological images also. Okay, so what does the patient come with? The patient always comes with dry cough, and also because of this fibrosis there won't be proper space for ventilation and perfusion, and as a result he lands up in so the patient develops dry cough and dyspnea. Then if you examine him, obviously there will be increased respiratory rate. You will see bibasilar crackles, which are called as, we call them as Vecro crackles, and you will also see bibasilar crepitations are seen. Sometimes you see inspiratory squeaks also. If advanced, then the patient can have cyanosis with clubbing. So what are you going to do in investigations? In investigations you'll have to rule out all the causes which can lead to interstitial lung diseases. There are many causes, many etiological factors which lead to interstitial lung diseases. So all those should be ruled out. But prior that, first you'll have to order a basic chest x-ray and HRCT. What is diagnostic of choice? The diagnostic of choice, investigation of choice in this case is HRCT, which is the investigation of choice in these interstitial lung diseases. Then if you do ABG is obviously it will be normal, because there is no problem in exchange of gases or ventilation. The main problem is here there is inspiration definitely, but the volume of the lung which is used in ventilation and perfusion is decreased. Okay, because of that, see, if this is the lung, if the upper lobe of the lung has been fibrosed or undergone changes, interstitial lung diseases, but the lower lobe of this lung is functioning properly, so as a result the ABG is almost normal. But because one part of the lung is not functioning properly, there will be decrease in the amount of air that has been taking in or out. So there will be decrease in total lung capacity, there will be decrease in functional residual capacity, there will be decrease in FEV1, and there will be decrease in FVC also. Because there is decrease in FEV1 and FVC, if you do the ratio of it, the FEV1 by FVC ratio will be almost normal, or it is increased also sometimes. Okay, then in this patients you can do you'll have to rule out other abnormalities, because it is most commonly associated with autoimmune diseases, so you'll have to exclude SLE. Okay, so because of that you should do ANA antigen, or you'll have to exclude vasculitis also. So to rule out vasculitis you'll have to do ANCA, that is anti-nuclear cytoplasmic antigen. All these examinations should be done, and you'll have to do sarcoidosis can also cause this disease. So as a result, if there is sarcoidosis, there is increased serum ACE levels. Okay, there can be increased LDH also, though this LDH increase is non-specific, but this can occur. So you'll have to look at all these patterns. Then here if you do chest x-ray, see, you can also do a chest x-ray, and if you do chest x-ray you see bibasilar reticular pattern is seen, and along with that you see honeycombing, which you see, I'll show you all the images also. Okay, now Now, how are you going to treat it? The treatment of this condition is mainly you should give oxygen supplementation, and then you should give glucocorticoids, prednisones can be given, and other drugs like colchicine or cyclosporin, okay, or other agents like cyclophosphamide or azathioprine. So all these are given. See, as I have said here, the main problem is in fibrosis, right? There is fibrosis is happening, and in order to stop this fibrosis to occur, there is a drug which can be given, which is called as perfenidone. Perfenidone. What is this perfenidone? This perfenidone is actually an anti-fibrotic agent, okay, and this is given to counteract the fibrosis. Okay, so these are the main things which you have to learn. So there are many interstitial lung diseases. We will deal each of them, okay, not as detailed, but we'll just deal with everything. So these are the different, these are the pictures which I have taken from Netter's Atlas for respiratory medicine. So in this is non-specific interstitial pneumonia. See, here the main pattern, see, these are the alveoli, okay, these are the alveoli. And what are you going to see in this alveoli? These alveolar walls are thickened. So main thing is these alveolar walls are uniformly thickened. And what are you seeing? This thing which you are seeing here, this red colored, pink colored, all these, what are these? This is fibrosis. You can see these fibrosis which is happening. So here there is uniformly thickened and there is fibrosis is present, okay, but here the alveoli is actually preserved, so there is gas exchange can occur here. So this is one thing. Second, if you see the HRCT, what are you going to see here? All these, what are all these? All these are ground glass opacities which you are seeing. See it properly, all these are ground glass opacities. And here, see, this is bronchiectasis. So even these interstitial lung diseases are also sometimes associated with bronchiectasis. These are dilated alveolar walls. Okay, so here there is bilateral symmetric ground glass opacity, and there is traction bronchiectasis also. Then this is respiratory bronchiolitis associated interstitial lung disease. What is respiratory bronchiolitis associated interstitial lung disease? Here the main problem here is respiratory bronchiolitis disease that can cause interstitial lung disease. Here what are you going to see? Even here you see ground glass opacities are seen, okay, and also you are seeing nodular opacities. Okay, so these are the nodular opacities, these opacities which you are seeing here. Opacities are seen as white color in CT, so these are nodular opacities, okay, which you are seeing here. Then what this is interstitial lymphoid interstitial pneumonitis. So as the name says, here you see many lymphatic cells. See, all these are what do we say, lymphocytes. Okay, so here you see a mixture of lymphocytes which you are seeing here. Okay, so here you see diffuse lymphoid infiltrate, and also there are reactive follicles also. So these are the follicles which you are seeing. Okay, I have the pictures from Robbins also. Okay, then this is diffuse interstitial pneumonia. This desquamative interstitial pneumonia. This desquamative interstitial pneumonia mainly occurs due to cigarette smoking, and this desquamated interstitial pneumonia is actually the main characteristic feature here is alveolar macrophages. Accumulation of alveolar macrophages is the main thing that occurs here. So these are the things which you are seeing, macrophages. And you are even look here, you have some brown pigment also. Sorry, I can't see it properly here. Anyways, I'll just show you. Okay, you will see alveolar macrophages containing granular brown pigment also. I have even more images. Okay, so here see, in all these in all these interstitial lung disease, you will see ground glass attenuation. Then how are you going to diagnose it? The diagnosis, see, if you see the main diagnosis for differentiation of all these is not HRCT, I'm sorry, it is biopsy. Lung biopsy is the main investigation of choice. Actually, it's not, you can't say it's gold standard. Gold standard is lung biopsy, because this lung biopsy can differentiate different types of interstitial lung diseases. Then this is one more type which is called as acute interstitial pneumonia. Okay, in acute interstitial pneumonia you can see the fibrosis. See, all these are fibrotic bands which you can see. Okay, so here you see uniform organizing fibrosis, and also you are seeing alveolar septal interstitial inflammation, alveolar septal interstitial inflammation and fibrosis. So all these are fibrosis you can see. Here in HRCT you are seeing ground glass opacity again, and there are, because it is pneumonia, there are areas of consolidation are seen. Okay, so this is one thing. Then this is the picture of this is the picture of cryptogenic organizing pneumonia. It is the picture of cryptogenic organizing pneumonia. Okay, so what are we going to see in this cryptogenic organizing pneumonia? See, here you see these are, what are these? Areas of consolidation are seen. Okay, and there is even patchy distribution. Okay, areas of consolidation are seen. This is cryptogenic pneumonia. Okay, anyways, this is bilateral areas of consolidation are seen. Okay, this is the picture of cryptogenic pneumonia. So what is this strain? Here you are seeing the collagen. All this is collagen which is blue in color. It is one Kosa stain for collagen, where you see blue colored collagen embedded with fibroblasts. So all this is the collagen blue colored which you can see here. This is cryptogenic organizing pneumonia. Then you have one more type here. Here what are we saying here? So even here you see crazy pavement pattern. So actually what is this? Actually this is one of the most, this is very important thing, okay, which you have to see. So what do we call this as? This is pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. This is pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. Okay, so what are we going to see in this pulmonary alveolar proteinosis? See, here you see alveoli, and this alveoli is filled with eosinophilic fluid. Okay, all this is the eosinophilic fluid which is seen. Then if you see here you see the most important thing is here also there is fibrosis. The pathogenesis is similar, but here you see crazy paving pattern of fibrosis, and you see small interlobular opacities and ground glass opacities. See, all these lines are interlobular opacities which you can see. Okay, then you can go do fiber optic bronchoscope also in these cases of interstitial pneumonia. Okay, here the Kerlin's tube is used for this fiber optic micro bronchoscopy, but this is not necessary. Next if you see, what is this? So this is hemosiderosis. This is idiopathic, we can call it as idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis. This is idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis. Okay, so what is this idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis? Here there is the patient presents with hemoptysis, pallor, weakness, jaundice, all these will be there. So what are you seeing here? Here there is there are macrophages, and you can also see this pigment which you are seeing here. This is brownish pigment which you can see here, and this pigment is nothing but hemosiderin pigment. Okay, all this is hemosiderin pigment. See the difference here. I know this picture is not that good, but this is the red color. Okay, this is brown color. You can see a little change in the intensity. Actually you can clearly see the red and brown color. I'll check if I have other pictures. Okay, then this here you see on the chest x-ray, you can see opacities or densities you can see, which are fine reticular and mottled densities are seen in both the lungs. So this is pulmonary idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis. Next, coming to the next disease, what is this? Okay, Even this is an interstitial lung disease. See, all these looks almost similar, but there are some catchy points. You should remember them, and that is only important here. So here, if you see, this is called as, there is a name for this which is called as leiomyomatosis. Okay, so what is this leiomyomatosis? Here, if you see in HRCT, obviously it's an interstitial lung disease. So you see similar, ground glass opacities and everything, and you see thin walled cysts also. But this is characteristic. Okay, here if you see, you have LAM cells are seen in the periphery of the spaces. See, these are the cystic spaces which you are seeing here. These are the cystic spaces. Okay, and periphery of the cystic spaces, you can see this colored granulations, colored cells, and these cells are LAM cells. Okay, this is characteristic feature. So even here you can see these are the cystic spaces, and here the cells which you are seeing here, these are called as LAM cells which are seen in the periphery. So this is lymphoangiomyomatosis. Okay, now next picture is, I think this is the final picture from Netters, which is pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis. This is called as pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis. So what are you seeing in this pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis? So here you can see in chest radiograph. See, this is the ink pen, sorry for this, but it's not going fine. So in this you can see these are the opacities which you are seeing here. Okay, so what are these opacities? These are reticular and nodular opacities are seen. Okay, then this is HRCT feature. HRCT is obviously same. You see, with lung X-ray and HRCT, you cannot differentiate whether it is which type of interstitial lung disease, though you can have an idea that it is an interstitial lung disease. Here you see nodules and cysts. Okay, but the only important thing that will differentiate is histology feature. See, here in pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis, you see multiple stellate shaped nodular infiltrates. These are the multiple stellate shaped nodular infiltrates which you are seeing in pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis. Even here, these cells which you are seeing here. Okay, so these are the Langerhans cell which you can see here. Cellular infiltrates of Langerhans cell are seen, and there is eosinophils also. See, this is spectacle shaped nucleus which you can see. So you see moderate eosinophilic cytoplasm. Okay, so this is about the these are the main pictures from Netters. Now again we will see all these pictures which you are seeing. These are from Robbins. Okay, so here you can see idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. See, here you can see the fibrosis. Okay, this is idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis which occurs. Radiograph which shows again the fibrotic areas. Okay, all this everything looks similar, so there is no need to remember. I'm just showing you how these are the ground glass opacities which are seen with honeycomb pattern. Okay, then see how is that gross picture of honeycomb pattern. See, it is just like a honeycomb with lots of holes in it. Okay, so this is honeycomb lung which you are seeing. Then okay, this is the picture of interstitial fibrosis. The same pictures which I have shown you in the previous. These are from Robbins. Those are from Netters. It's just you can it becomes easier for you to identify if you see many pictures. So here this is again a trichrome stain which you can see here. This is trichrome stain of collagen, which is blue colored collagen is seen. This is trichrome stain. Okay. So there is fibroblast proliferation which you see. Interstitial areas are completely filled with fibrosis. Then this is eosinophilic granuloma. See, there are many eosinophils. These things you can even zoom it. See, eosinophils have spectacle shaped nucleus. If you see, this is then see you can see this eosinophil with two nuclei. Again here eosinophil with one see this eosinophil with two nuclei, spectacle shaped nuclei. So like that we can see the eosinophils with spectacle shaped nuclei are seen. Okay, in eosinophilic granuloma. Okay, there are many eosinophils. Inflammatory cells are present with eosinophils mainly. Okay, then here Again you can see this is the zoomed in picture of the same. See, here you can see clearly instead of prior picture. See, you can see this is the eosinophil with spectacle shaped nucleus. Eosinophil, again spectacle shaped nucleus. Eosinophil with spectacle shaped nucleus. Okay, so this is eosinophilic granuloma. Then the next picture is about pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. So what are you seeing in pulmonary alveolar proteinosis? You can see PAS positive exudates are seen, and you see abundant lipid laden and lamellar bodies, mainly on the electron microscopy. But here you can only see PAS positive. So just look into it. So all these actually alveoli, what should they have? They should have air in it, right? Alveoli should look something like this with air filled cavities. But here see, there is no alveoli itself. This is lung, but does it actually look like lung? See, this is one alveoli, but still there is some exudate which you see inside. Even here there is one alveoli. All these are alveoli, okay? But you can see lots of exudate which are seen inside. So this is pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. Then, so these are the different images which I have. Now we will see in detail about all the interstitial lung diseases. Okay, this is just theory of everything what I have told you just now. So interstitial lung diseases. So what are the different types of interstitial lung diseases? So first, the interstitial lung disease can be of different presentations: acute, subacute, chronic. But if there is acute, but mostly it is chronic or subacute. But if there is acute presentation, will there be an acute presentation? Yes, there will be. So in that, the acute presentation of interstitial lung disease is mainly because of allergy. Okay, the examples of this interstitial lung disease with acute presentation are these, which are very important. Okay, acute interstitial pneumonia, eosinophilic pneumonia, and hypersensitivity pneumonitis. So these are the interstitial lung disease which have acute presentation, and these are mainly due to allergy. So I have already said you, these acute interstitial lung diseases, here there is mainly the fibrosis or fibrotic processes start to occur. So because of that, there will be dry cough and the patient presents with exertional dyspnea. On examination, you can see tachypnea, and you will also see bibasilar and inspiratory dry crackles, and these crackles which you see are called as Vercoe crackles. You will see crepitations also. Okay, if there is advanced cases, the whole lung gets fibrosed, and because the whole lungs gets fibrosed, there won't be enough oxygen to enter the alveoli, and as a result the patient develops cyanosis and clubbing. Then what are you going to do in laboratory investigations? You will have to first exclude the causes. So first you will have to obtain a baseline chest x-ray. In all the interstitial lung diseases, almost all the interstitial lung diseases, you will see bibasilar reticular pattern and honeycombing. Then if you do an HRCT, then you will see a subpleural reticular opacities, or in HRCT also you can see honeycomb pattern. I have shown you many pictures, right? Now if you do a pulmonary function test, then here the main problem here is decrease in the space, right? Decrease in the lung becoming fibrosed, and as a result there won't be proper exchange of gases. Because of that, there will be decreased total lung capacity, there will be decreased functional functional residual capacity, there will be decreased forced expiratory volume in 1 second, or FVC. So all these will get decreased. Because of decreased FVC and decreased FEV1 and FVC, so the FEV1 by FVC ratio will be normal or increased. Okay, then these are the investigations according to the causes. So we'll have to do anti-nuclear antibody or anti-immunoglobulin antibody to exclude the autoimmune conditions. If you think of sarcoidosis, then you will have to do serum ACE levels, because serum ACE levels are increased in sarcoidosis. If you think it can be due to vasculitis, then you will have to do anti-nuclear cytoplasmic antibody or anti-basement membrane antibody. Okay, if you think you'll have to do ECG, because there can be a chance of developing cor pulmonale in these diseases also. Okay, baseline ECG should be done, and echocardiography should be done. Okay, in echocardiography, see, it is similar to chronic bronchitis or any obstructive lung diseases also. Here the lung parenchyma undergoes fibrosis. Because of fibrosis of lung parenchyma, what actually happens is there won't be proper exchange of gases. Okay, because of that there will be increased resistance to the blood flow to the pulmonary arteries. So as a result there will be development of pulmonary hypertension. Whenever there is pulmonary hypertension, there will be back pressure which occurs for the blood which travels from right ventricle to pulmonary artery, and as a result the right ventricle has to work hard to pump the blood into the pulmonary artery, and as a result the right ventricle undergoes hypertrophy and dilatation, and this results in right ventricular hypertrophy. Slowly as the days progresses, the right ventricular builds up pressure, and now the atria will become now it becomes difficult for the atria to pump blood into the right ventricle. So as a result there will be right atrial dilatation and hypertrophy also. This back pressure also goes into the inferior vena cava as days progresses, and this leads to cor pulmonale, that is right heart failure due to a lung disease. So cor pulmonale is also a risk factor, so you should do echocardiography. Then if you do arterial blood gas analysis in the initial stages, it will be hypoxemia, and there is a chance of having respiratory alkalosis also. Okay, then you will have to do, you can do a cardiopulmonary exercise testing. This cardiopulmonary exercise testing is something like walk test. You will have to ask the person to walk for almost 6 minutes, 6 to 10 minutes, and then you will have to see the arterial oxygen. If it is normal, then there is no need to worry. It is just to find out the baseline lung function, so that if he deteriorates, you can see the progress of the disease. Then fiber optic bronchoscopy and bronchoalveolar lavage, these are done mainly for the cellular analysis. Okay, you can also obtain the lung biopsy specimen from this bronchoscopy, through this bronchoscopy. And this lung biopsy, as I have said, you will have to do staining histology for all the lung biopsy specimens, and on histology you can clearly differentiate the different types of interstitial lung diseases. So we have learned all the histological features of all the interstitial lung diseases, right? Now what are you going to do it? How are you going to treat the disease? The treatment of the disease is you will have to do oxygen supplementation should be given, and if you give the oxygen supplementation, okay, you should give oxygen supplementation to the patient, and glucocorticoids and prednisolone can be given. But even after giving oxygen supplementation, glucocorticoids and prednisolone are actually given long term. Even after giving them, even if the patient deteriorates, then you will have to add some other agent. Most commonly you will add immunosuppressive agent like cyclophosphamide or azathioprine. Sometimes other studies, based on the studies, different other drugs like colchicine or cyclosporine or N-acetylcysteine are also tried. Then if you have one more important thing which is here is, as I have already said, here the main culprit here is fibrosis. Fibrotic process which is going on is responsible for this interstitial lung diseases. So this fibrosis should be stopped, or it can be stopped by transforming growth factor beta inhibitor called as pirfenidone. Okay, then at the end the best treatment is lung transplantation. You will have to do lung biopsy in order to diagnose which type of interstitial lung disease it is. So in order to diagnose it, you will have to do a lung biopsy. But there are some contraindications for lung biopsy. Contraindications of lung biopsy are whenever there is severe cardiovascular disease, or if there is honeycombing, or if severe pulmonary dysfunction, or if X-ray evidence of end-stage lung disease. In all these cases you will have to do a lung biopsy. Now once we have learnt about all these, now let us see each disease which I have told you now. Okay, I have shown you each and every picture with all the features also. I am just revising them again through my notes. Here you won't have any pictures, only the notes, because you will have to see the catch point what it is. Then you can go back to the pictures and you can look into them. All these notes has been uploaded, so don't worry. So this here you see idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Okay, this idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis is also called as idiopathic interstitial pneumonia or usual interstitial pneumonia or cryptogenic fibrosing alveolitis. What are you going to see here? Here there is various stages of infection. See, there won't be uniform lung honeycombing, there won't be uniform fibrosis. Okay, there will be some areas will be completely normal. In some areas you can see just a starting of inflammation like fibroelastic foci development. In some areas you will see a mild fibrosis. In some areas you see honeycombing development. So in this idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, there will be various stages of inflammatory development. That is called as heterogeneity. So you will see temporal heterogeneity in idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Then the next picture is non-specific interstitial pneumonia. This is one more type of interstitial lung disease. So what are you going to see in non-specific interstitial lung pneumonia? See, as the name says, it is non-specific. You can't actually, it does not have a specific lung finding. So as a result, here there is no temporal heterogeneity. There is no particular lung finding. It is seen in many conditions where there is some underlying disorder like connective tissue disorders or drug-induced interstitial lung disease or chronic hypersensitivity pneumonitis. In all these conditions, you can see this non-specific interstitial pneumonia. Then the next type of pneumonia is acute interstitial pneumonia, or also called as Hammond-Rich syndrome. So in this acute interstitial pneumonia or Hammond-Rich syndrome, you see diffuse lung injury occurs, and you will also see development of hyaline membrane occurs in this acute interstitial pneumonia or Hammond-Rich syndrome. Then there is the next type, which is called as cryptogenic organizing pneumonia. Okay, I have already shown you this cryptogenic organizing pneumonia. Here you see pulmonary opacity is definitely. Here the main thing that you see here is granulation tissue is seen. Okay, just remember one word for each of them and try to identify the histological features through a diagram. That's enough for the exam. Now, interstitial lung disease associated with cigarette smoking. There are three major interstitial lung diseases which are associated with cigarette smoking. 1. Desquamated interstitial pneumonia. 2. Respiratory bronchiole associated interstitial pneumonia. 3. Pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis. So, if there is interstitial lung disease associated with cigarette smoking, here the cigarette smoke is the triggering factor which will trigger the inflammation. So, whenever there is inflammation, there is accumulation of neutrophils followed by macrophages in order to ingest all this toxic material. So because of that, in desquamative interstitial pneumonia, you mainly see macrophages. Here the main word is macrophages. You see macrophages in the intra-alveoli. Remember, it is seen in the alveoli. Here in desquamated interstitial pneumonia, you see macrophages present in the alveoli along with interstitial fibrosis. Then we have respiratory bronchiole associated interstitial lung disease. In this also there will be macrophages, but here the macrophages are present in the alveoli, but they are mainly present in the peribronchial alveoli. This is the bronchi. On either sides of the bronchi, around the bronchi also you will have alveoli. Over there is accumulation of macrophages. That is the reason why we call it as respiratory bronchiole, because it is present on either sides of or around the bronchi. So here also there is accumulation of macrophages. Then we have pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis. So in pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis, it is more common in male followed by more than females, and it is seen in 20 to 40 years. Here if you do a biopsy, you see nodular sclerosing lesions are seen. With Langerhans cell, definitely the main catch point is cysts. I have shown you the cysts, and around the cysts what are present? Surrounding the cysts you see these Langerhans cells or LAM cells, which I have shown you, right? Next there are some interstitial diseases which are associated with connective tissue disorders. Like one such is progressive systemic sclerosis. This progressive systemic sclerosis is associated with pulmonary fibrosis, pleuritis and recurrent aspiration. This interstitial lung disease, which is associated with connective tissue disease, is rheumatoid arthritis also. See, in rheumatoid arthritis there is one important thing which is called as, you see necrobiotic nodules are seen in rheumatoid arthritis. What is necrobiotic nodules? In the lung you see presence of rheumatoid nodules which are called as necrobiotic nodules. And one more important thing is about Kaplan syndrome. Okay, Kaplan syndrome is also, what is Kaplan syndrome? Kaplan syndrome is the presence of rheumatoid arthritis, pneumoconiosis, and also one more, interstitial lung disease is also present in that. Okay, now, so even here there will be pulmonary hypertension develops, the same as I have said for interstitial lung disease. Even here you see pulmonary hypertension, sometimes due to cricoarytenoid arthritis. Because of cricoarytenoid arthritis there can be upper airway obstruction also. Next, the next connective disease is SLE. See, in this SLE you will see pleuritis with or without effusion is the most common pulmonary manifestation of SLE. Here you also see atelectasis, sometimes you see diaphragmatic dysfunction, pulmonary vascular disease or pulmonary hemorrhage, or you can say uremic pulmonary edema or infectious pneumonia or organizing pneumonia. Okay, next, the next picture is polymyositis and dermatomyositis. Okay, here this polymyositis and dermatomyositis is also an interstitial lung disease which is due to connective tissue disorder, and this shows mainly, the main catching point here is diffuse alveolar damage is the catching point. Next we have Sjogren syndrome. So in the Sjogren syndrome here there is dryness, right? So because in Sjogren syndrome there is no airway secretion. See, Sjogren syndrome is lymphatic inflammation or infiltration which occurs in the salivary glands, glandular tissues, salivary glands, lacrimation glands. Okay, so along with that even the airway glands will also get affected. Okay, bronchial glands, all those get affected. So as a result there won't be any proper airway secretion. So this leads to hoarseness of voice, cough and bronchitis. Sometimes it can also lead to lymphocytic interstitial pneumonitis. This is very important. It causes lymphocytic interstitial pneumonitis. And you can see its association with lymphoma, pseudolymphoma or bronchiolitis and bronchiolitis obliterans. So, drug-induced interstitial lung disease. What are the drugs which causes interstitial lung disease? There are many drugs, but most important drugs are carmustine and amiodarone are the most important drugs. Okay, this is very important. Among all those which I have told now, this is something which is very important and which is a little more common than others. So, if you see in this pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. So, what is this pulmonary alveolar proteinosis? This is something which runs in families sometimes. Okay, it is a genetic disorder, or you can say it is not actually, it can be genetic or it can be acquired also. But before that, what actually happens is it is an immunological disorder where there is production of antibodies against granulocyte monocyte colony stimulating factor. Okay, what actually happens is there is granulocyte monocyte colony stimulating factor. Against this granulocyte monocyte colony stimulating factor, there is presence of neutralizing antibodies. What are these antibodies? These are IgG type of antibodies. Okay, what does this these antibodies do? These will decrease these granulocyte monocyte colony stimulating factor, and as a result the macrophages which will actually engulf the irritative material or allergens, all these will get disturbed or destroyed, and as a result there is surfactants will also decrease. This leads to the formation of this pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. Okay, even here so the surfactant is decreased. So what are the causes? So as I said, one, there is congenital cause. Second, there will be acquired cause. Okay, so in congenital causes, remember it is autosomal recessive disorder, and here there is frame shift mutation from SPB gene. What is frame shift mutation? Frame shift mutation is, think that this is some we have, okay, think that this is UAAGAG. Okay, now we have added one See, this is one group, this is one group coding some A protein, B protein. Okay, now you have added T in between. Now what happens? This 3 becomes 1 and this 3 becomes 1 and this combines with something else. So as a result, this has been same, but this protein has been changed. Because of that, this protein has been changed. All the other, sorry, not protein, amino acids, all the amino acids which these codons code, all those will get changed because of insertion of one codon. So that is called as frame shift mutation. Okay, whenever there is frame shift mutation in SPB gene, this results in SPB mRNA. This results in SPB. What is SP? It's simple, surfactant protein, right? This results in unstable SPB mRNA, where the surfactant production is not proper here. In congenital disease, here there is frame shift mutation and the surfactant is not properly produced. Whereas in acquired conditions, actually among this congenital and acquired is most common, and in this acquired conditions there can be, it can be due to lysinuric protein intolerance or acute silicosis, or this is important, lysinuric protein intolerance, and it can be due to silicosis or inflammatory immunodeficiency disorders, or it can be due to malignancy or hematopoietic disorder, all these. Okay, now what are the clinical features? See, it is most common in the age group of 30 to 50 years, and it is most common in males when compared to females. So obviously even this is an interstitial lung disease, so the clinical features will be more or less similar. There will be dyspnea, there will be cough, which is dry cough or non-productive cough, which is seen most commonly. You will also see fatigue, weight loss or low grade fever. Okay, one important characteristic feature is definitely there is non-productive cough, but there is expectoration of chunky gelatinous material which is pinkish in color. This expectoration is the characteristic feature of pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. You will also see presence of polycythemia, hyper gamma globulinemia and increased LDL also. There is increased serum levels of lung surfactant proteins, which are A and B. Then if you do pulmonary function tests, this pulmonary function test shows restrictive pattern. I have already shown you. The main, what is the gold standard investigation? See, I have said there is a development of autoantibodies here, right? There is development of IgG, isotope against granulocyte, monocyte, colony stimulating factor. So these antibodies, if we can detect in the biopsy specimen or bronchoalveolar lavage fluid, then that is the gold standard. Okay, finding this fluid is, this thing is the main diagnostic feature. Even there can be increased levels of surfactant protein A and D also. So X-ray will be similar, okay, similar to all others, but main thing is it is most common, these opacities are more common in lower and middle lung zone, that too centrally. So because they are present in lower and middle lung zone, this gives bat wing distribution. I'll just draw it to you. See, this is the lung and these opacities are most common in lower and the middle lobe. Okay, and as a result this now looks like the wings of the bat. Okay, bat wing distribution. Then we also have ground glass opacity, which are seen, and there is thickened intralobular septa. I have already shown you the pictures. Okay, there is thickened intralobular septum, and this is called as crazy pavement appearance. Then if you do histology, histologically you will see accumulation of amorphous PAS positive lipoproteinaceous material is seen. Okay, so this is important things. Next, the next disorder is pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis. Even these pictures I have shown. In this pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis, this is most common in premenstrual and young patients. So this is pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis. So in this pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis, it actually affects the premenstrual age group, premenopausal and young females with emphysema. Okay, and it is also associated with recurrent pneumothorax and chylous pleural effusion. Here if you see, there will be proliferation of atypical pulmonary interstitial smooth muscles is seen. Here there will be proliferation of atypical pulmonary interstitial smooth muscle, and there is cyst formation. Here the most important thing is, here the smooth muscles will react with this monoclonal antibody which is HMB45, and these HMB45 also recognizes a 100 kilodaltons glycoprotein which is in human myeloma cells. So if you see, HMB45 is positive in pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis. This pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis is increased in pregnancy because it is actually related to the menopausal females, and so it increases in young females, so it increases in pregnancy, and it decreases in oophorectomy. So it is just an association which has been found. Okay, so clinical features are similar to any interstitial lung disease. There is hemoptysis is one of the most common feature which occurs here, and this hemoptysis which occurs is life threatening. Okay, there are some complications like chyluria, chyloperitoneuum, okay, chyluria, chylothorax, chylopericardium, all these can occur, and it is also associated with meningiomas and meningiomas and renal angiomyolipomas. So it is associated with renal angiomyolipomas and meningiomas, and also hematomas. Okay, so here in HRCT you actually see thin wall cyst. Okay, no therapy is required. At least you should remember these points. See, everything in complications is related to chylothorax, chyloperitoneuum, chyluria, chylopericardium. Okay, so these are the important features in pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis. Then if you see syndrome of interstitial lung disease with diffuse alveolar hemorrhage, so in this what happens is, there is diffuse alveolar hemorrhage. How will hemorrhage occurs in alveoli? This is through injury to arterioles, venules or arterial septal capillaries. Whenever there is injury to the arterial vessels or blood vessels in and around the alveoli, this will lead to disruption of basement membrane, leading to the hemoptysis, and this bleeding will also enter the alveolar spaces, and you see hemorrhage also. Okay, that is diffuse alveolar hemorrhage. So what is the causes of this diffuse alveolar hemorrhage? Okay, what actually occurs here is, there is pulmonary capillaritis, and there is neutrophilic interstitial alveolar septa. Okay, because of this pulmonary capillaritis, that is, what is pulmonary capillaritis means? Pulmonary capillaritis is capillaries are inflamed. So because of the inflammation of pulmonary capillaries, so there is problem in pulmonary capillaries. So see, I'll just draw you one diagram so that it becomes easier for you. So this is the alveoli, okay, and on here there will be the blood vessel which is passing capillaries which are like this. Okay, so this is capillaries. So now the inflammation is present. Where is the inflammation actually present? It is actually, this inflammation is actually present in the capillaries. Okay, because this is the inflammation which occurs in the capillaries, so there is loss of this capillary integrity. So this capillaries are lost. Okay, so because of this what happens, the blood which is actually present in this capillaries, okay, so the blood which is actually present in this capillaries, this blood will enter the alveoli, okay, and they will fill in the alveoli, thus resulting in the hemorrhage which you are seeing here. Okay, now here the patient can present with hemoptysis, and also he can present with diffuse alveolar opacities, and there can be decreased hemoglobin level also. Obviously because of this hemoptysis there is decreased alveolar level, and if you do bronchoalveolar lavage you will see hemorrhagic fluid which is coming from the bronchoalveolar lavage, obviously because the alveolar itself filled with blood. And what are you going to see here? Here there will be decreased hematocrit also. So here this bronchoalveolar lavage being hemorrhagic is very important characteristic finding, telling that it is diffuse alveolar hemorrhage, that is the hemorrhage is actually occurring in the alveoli. Then if you see here, there is impaired renal function also, because this is associated with focal segmental necrotizing glomerulonephritis with crescent formation. Because it is associated with this, so there is increased chances of having this problem. Then it is also associated with, these associations are also very important, it is associated with Goodpasture syndrome, Where there are linear deposits, it is associated with Henox Conlin purpura, which is a vasculitis which has IgA deposits or IgA immune containing deposits. Then it is associated with idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis also. I have already shown you the picture of idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis. Slowly as the days progresses, the blood which is accumulated in the alveoli that get resorbed sometimes the pigment which is there, hemoglobin pigment in the RBCs, that get converted into hemosiderin, thus resulting in idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis. So this is very important. Okay, so finally these are the different interstitial lung diseases, inherited interstitial lung diseases which are seen. See, inherited interstitial lung diseases include, we have phacomatosis, then tuberous sclerosis, neurofibroma. We have phacomatosis, tuberous sclerosis, neurofibromatosis, lysosomal storage disorders, and Niemann-Pick's disease, Gaucher's disease, Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome. Okay, what is Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome? Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome is an autosomal recessive condition which has granulomatous colitis. This has granulomatous colitis and interstitial lung disease. The main features of this are, this is very important, these features. It has oculocutaneous albinism. So it actually has oculocutaneous albinism. And there is bleeding diastasis, and there is secondary platelet dysfunction, and there is accumulation of chromolipids and lipofuscin material in the reticuloendothelial cells. So these are the different findings which are seen in Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome. And if you see liver lung biopsy, obviously you see fibrotic pattern, and here the characteristic feature in lung biopsy is presence of alveolar macrophages and spheroid like inclusions. These macrophages have spheroid like inclusions. I will even draw this diagram, just a minute. So this is the macrophage. If you see, this macrophage has infusion which is like spheroid like infusion, which is something inclusions like this. Okay, there will be spheroid like inclusions. Okay, so this is about inherited disorders of interstitial disease. Then we have one more disease which is called as idiopathic granulomatous response in lung tissue and vascular structures. So in this there is granulomatous vasculitis are also seen. So obviously, as the name says, it is associated with granuloma formation. So what are the diseases which are in vasculitis and associated with granuloma formation? Vasculitic diseases associated with granuloma formation are mainly four. One, which is Wegener's disease, which is associated with lung dysfunction, and this is Churg-Strauss disease, which is also associated with lung dysfunction. There are other two which are not commonly associated with lung dysfunction, like Takayasu's arteritis and Giant-cell arteritis. So both these are granulomatous diseases, but they are not associated with this lung disease. Okay, but Wegener's granulomatosis and Churg-Strauss syndrome, these both are associated with granulomatous vasculitis. Next we have one more last two types of vasculitis. One is lymphocytic infiltrative disorder. What is this lymphocytic infiltrative disorder? This lymphocytic infiltrative disorder includes angioimmunoblastic lymphadenopathy with dysproteinemia. Okay, it's not necessary to remember, just if you wanted to remember you can. This is bronchocentric granulomatosis. What do you see in this bronchocentric granulomatosis? Here the granulomas are actually concentrated in the bronchioles. So here it is mostly associated with asthma. So this is about the interstitial lung diseases. So thank you guys for watching my lecture. In the next class we will learn about the occupational diseases. Thank you.